Good morning, or whatever time it is that you're watching this. I have my coffee and I am just feeling like chatting with you guys. A few years ago, I made a video about what a bad day with glaucoma looks like, and I wanted to make a part 2 to that video because, as you guys know, using radical acceptance and choosing a positive attitude and all of that is very important to me, but bad days still do exist. I am human, and as a human, you just can't have only good days. And so although I want to make it clear that this is just a day out of many good days, of many happy days. I have the happiness diaries because working on my own personal happiness has been a huge priority for me, and I have come such a long way in being a more positive, accepting person. But over the last 24 hours, I've just been kind of struggling, and I've had 2 panic attacks, and I just want to be vulnerable and honest with you guys so that if it's something that you also are going through, you know that you're not alone. Because with having glaucoma, it's always going to be an up and down journey, and so I want to make sure that I do still share the downs so that I'm not misleading anyone into thinking that it is always positive and happy, wonderful, butterflies, rainbow, sunshine all the time, because that's obviously just not realistic. I think what set off this sort of bad day of glaucoma was a comment that was made to me about having a victim mindset, and that is a very sensitive topic for me. I've been told that I have a victim mindset by multiple people at different times in my life, and I don't necessarily think they're entirely wrong, yet it is still a very hurtful thing to have spoken to me, especially given the fact in the last 2 years I have been working extremely hard to overcome my mindset and to be brave and all of those things. And something I do struggle with is knowing the difference between when having glaucoma is holding me back and when it's my mindset that's holding me back. And I'm 26 years old, and I do look back at how my 20s have played out and do sometimes feel hard on myself for not achieving. I really don't want to cry through this entire video, so I'm just gonna take it slow to process this. But I do look back and wonder that if I didn't view being visually impaired as an obstacle, if I would have achieved more things in my life, even though it is an obstacle, and I don't think it's wrong of me, or even I don't think it's entirely my mindset that's the issue, because being visually impaired isn't something that you can just mindfully improve, and there are just genuine barriers to my capabilities that hold me back, and it is frustrating. I have gotten used to having to be okay, losing in a lot of games that I play with people, because no matter my best effort, I'm probably not gonna win against people who can see. Not all the time, but depending. And there are times that I just genuinely can't see something well enough to do it, and being visually impaired, I'm not always aware of the things that I am missing. So there is sometimes a lack of self-awareness of the things that I can't see because I can't see them, so I'm not aware that I can't see them, if that makes sense. And I do sometimes struggle with being frustrated with myself and mad at myself for not being braver in life and for not being more willing to take certain challenges head on. I do also struggle with anxiety, and there is a lot of fear that comes with being visually impaired. And people in my life often, I think, want me to be a little bit more independent in using Uber, and even taking more charge and using accommodations and integrating those more into my life. What is a little bit challenging about that is when I was first diagnosed to where I am now, my vision has changed and I do see less than I did a few years ago. So the accommodations I've needed have evolved. And when you go through vision loss, you do have to go through a process of grief with that. And so it takes time to get to a place of acceptance. And then from there, having to figure out like what my new needs are. And I do struggle because I am sort of at this like in between with my vision where like I don't really feel like I need to use a cane or have a seeing eye dog. And also I'm sure using those things would benefit me in some aspects because it would at least let people around me know that I might need some extra help seeing things and would bring some awareness to others about my vision impairment, even though I don't really struggle to like walk on my own. And it's just a few things of like crossing really busy streets, and sometimes I now struggle to see crosswalk signs when that used to not be an issue. Not to mention like technology has advanced a lot within my lifetime. So what accommodations are available to me now are significantly different. So I'm probably not even fully aware of what I could be doing to help me be more successful in life. And having glaucoma, I do struggle with feeling this pressure to be independent. When I do live in a very like independent, individualistic society where I don't always feel like that's my burden to carry. Like, why not use a buddy system for life and find people? Like, I think it's okay for me to have people in my life that I depend on. And I'm sorry because this video is probably not going to make a lot of sense and it's just going to be all over the place. And so you might just have to pick out like nuggets through the nonsense of what I'm saying. But I have been just struggling lately with even thinking about the fact that like I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old, and I feel like that as a kid, that's a time in your life where you're developing your self-concept and like your self-esteem and, you know, figuring out like how you compare to your peers. And like that's where I have been trying to do some like inner child work to realize like while other kids my age were just like playing sports and having fun and not caring a lot about life, I was having to process a life altering diagnosis. And a lot of my childhood was spent in doctor's appointments and surgeries and pulled out of class to learn Braille. And so even now where I've gotten some feedback about my lack of willingness to use more accommodations in my life, I also feel as though that's a little unfair because I've spent a lot of time with people who specialize in equipping me with accommodations and giving me tools, and I have used them as I felt necessary. I do think there's a little bit of a misconception about how certain like accommodations help, because when I was younger and using like computer programs like Zoom text that make zoom into your computer screen, that was actually slowing me down in using a computer because it took a lot longer to navigate. And now that my vision's worse, I do zoom into my screen and have a big cursor, and it's worth the hindrance because now I'm able to see. But before, it was easier for me to just get really close up to my screen, and using magnifiers was slowing me down in reading because these things aren't like magic, they're just tools, you know? And as I am at this point where I am considering like, am I at the point in my vision loss that I need to consider using a cane and getting a seeing eye dog? Like, these things aren't just like, okay, now you have them. It requires a lot of like learning and time and money, and so it's not quite as simple as just being like, oh yeah, like I'll do that. Like it has to, you know, it's about finding the right place to get equipped with these things and taking the time away from like my life to learn them. And I mean, yeah, like I do struggle with not wanting to be different from other people, and I think I've learned to get better at embracing my vision impairment and gotten better at that, but I have experienced a lot of microaggressions in my life and a lot of things that have made me want to try to hide my vision impairment. And I do have maybe a bad habit of trying to like mask it and trying to pretend like that I'm normal and fit in and just pretend that I see things. And so I am working on like unlearning that just like instant reaction of me to be like, when someone asks like, can you see it? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, no, like I don't know why I lied. I think it's also it's frustrating for myself when I can't see things. And so it's not even about wanting to like lie to other people, it's just about wanting to almost lie to myself. And like I said, when you lose vision, you have to like go through those stages of grief, and denial is a part of that. And I think what's frustrating for me is when sighted people want to say that I have a victim mindset and put like a lot of, I guess, like blame on me, because it just feels like there's sometimes a lack of compassion for the fact that like they don't have to go through it, and if they did, like they probably would also struggle with the things that I'm struggling with and coming to terms with all of this. And I've mentioned it in previous videos, but being visually impaired, it's like when I was 8 years old and I was diagnosed, I did learn, okay, how do I live my life as a kid with a vision impairment, and then a teenager with a vision impairment. When everyone around me started driving, like I had to learn what it looked like for me to not do that. And then now I'm just at this point where I'm an adult and having to learn, okay, now what does this look like? And like, no, nobody teaches you these things. Like, yes, I am lucky that I've been connected to organizations and resources that do help me. But even when I got my job and I was reaching out to them about, okay, what are my transportation options? Like, I didn't get help with that. And so I had to use my friends and family, and then I also had to start Ubering. And I was proud of myself because last year I took that step to learn how to Uber on my own, because it's navigating an app, which is difficult for me to do. It's finding a car, which is difficult for me to do. And I did it, and I was really proud of myself for that. And then when I was able to, I moved close enough to work to where, I can walk to work. And so I have been problem solving these things along the way, but there's never going to be a task or a thing that like my vision's is like, not required. So like everything that I do has some obstacle associated with it, it feels like. And I think sometimes I've had people in my life be like, well, you could probably do that if you just tried. But like, that's not always how that works. Like, I can't try hard enough, like I can't try to see better. Like, I'm just not going to be able to see better. So there are some barriers. And I think that like when I continually do things that like, and most of the time I do overcome them, like some days I do just wake up frustrated that I have to once again live my life being visually impaired and missing things. And I've even just been struggling lately because even in like dating, with where my vision is at now, it's hard for me to pick up on like subtle body language and facial expressions. And then sometimes I feel like guys are like, oh, I didn't really feel the spark. And I feel like it's sometimes because like I can't connect with people as well when it comes to those like subtle forms of communication. Like, I do obviously wish sometimes I could just be better at things. And it's also hard for me to look back at my life knowing that I used to be able to see better than I do now. And I do live with regret of like, what could I have done different to have kept that vision? And it's hard to not regret certain things or feel sort of like some like self-hate, some shame, like just some like really negative emotions towards myself about how things have played out. And with all that said, you know, that's why I do spend a lot of time journaling and meditating and working on positive affirmations so that I don't have to carry those things, because you know, all I have is the present moment and where I'm at, and I'm very blessed. And so I really do have more good days than bad, but this past like 24 hours has been difficult for me. I just wanted to process it with you guys so that you know that if you deal with certain feelings and thoughts, like, you are not alone. And making these videos is also a good reminder to myself that I'm not alone in this. And on my bad days, like, it really is your guys' comments and emails and all of that that give me strength to get past it. So thank you so much. And I'm just gonna end the video here, and I'm kind of nervous to edit it because I feel like it's going to make absolutely no sense, but I will probably just upload it anyway. So thank you for watching it if you made it through, and leave a comment, start some conversation, and I'll see you in my next much happier video.